Feedback Friday. This is your chance, if you're new to the page and the channel, to think about this week what's worked, what's not worked so well, and what could work better. Now, despite how bubbly I am feeling and showing here what I was feeling, not so much first thing this morning, but last night I was feeling really flat. And so I want to talk today a little bit about how doing the feedback model helps me to get my energy back. And one of the things about feedback is it's really important that you separate what you're hearing and seeing from the story that you make up, the inference that you make, and therefore the impact it has on you, both emotionally and for me today, energetically. So good morning, whoever's joining me this morning, please say hello. It always helps for me to know I'm not on my own. It's always gorgeous to have some feedback. So what's worked for me this week is really being okay with drama. I've discovered, had a bit of a light bulb moment this week. I think I've spent my entire life good morning. It's come up as Facebook users. If you want to pop your name, that would be gorgeous because I can't see that right now. It would be fabulous. Or you can go to the top of the page, depending where you are, and just give StreamYard your permission, and then your name will come up and I'll be able to see you. That'd be great. So my big learning this week, what's really worked this week, is that I have spent my entire life trying to avoid upsetting people, worrying about what people think, desperately trying to be the people pleaser. Now, the great thing about becoming a people pleaser means I became very good at listening to people. I became very good at adjusting my behavior so that they would be okay. And that was great for being a manager. It was great for selling. It was great for parenting, until it wasn't. Because ultimately, eventually when my teens were going through their transition and changing from child to adult, adapting my behavior to please them meant there was no boundaries. There was nothing for them to push back against. And so they had they didn't have any rules really clearly in place that made them feel safe going through that transition and that change. And so what I've learned this week really is that I learned about the drama model, where you're either blaming other people, you're blaming yourself, or you're busy helping loads of other people, and feeling like you're resenting it, and you're rescuing and supporting. You've been a bit of a martyr. So the rescuer tends to be a bit of a martyr role. You're doing all these things for other people. They don't seem to appreciate it, and you're kind of in this drama situation. And I have spent my entire life feeling bad, i.e. being in drama, for when I discover that either I feel a victim or I feel, I'm persecuting something. And I've just had a bit of a light bulb moment that actually there are times when absolutely we are the victim. Absolutely, it's sad and we're not okay. There are times when other people are doing something that is absolutely not okay. But the point behind the drama triangle as a model, which is on page 118 of my book, if you've got it, Manage Your Critic from Overwhelm to Clarity, is that by highlighting, if you are in a situation where you're talking or not talking and it's not getting you what you want, then noticing where you might be in the drama triangle and changing the way that you ask for things can change the outcome. But just that moment of going, actually, it's okay to be in drama. It's more to do with about the impact it's having on you and the people that matter to your happiness, your success and happiness. So if you're in drama and you're always criticizing your partner or your children or your clients or your team, then you might be okay being in drama, but the impact it's having on other people could be quite detrimental. So being aware of that that's my big learning this week, is that being in drama is okay until it's not. It's about actually the impact it's having on the people around you, and the impact it's having on yourself. Things that didn't work so well for me this week were an old pattern of mine, actually. So I had started about 2 weeks ago eating a lot cleaner because I wanted to get more energy. And I did a project a couple of years ago where I put a year to love my body. So I was really going through thanking every part of my body. I started with my hair, went to my eyebrows, my eyes, my eyelashes, my cheeks, my nose, my tongue, my teeth, my chin. I literally went through every part of my body and every day journaled about what I loved about that part of my body. And what was really interesting when I did that project was how much I really loved my hair. But I got to my stomach, and I bet in June or July, and I got stuck. I couldn't think of anything I loved about it. It had stretch marks, it was big, it was, everything I couldn't. And I sat there every day reflecting on what did I love about it, and I just couldn't come up with anything. And but it took August, 28th of August was my daughter's birthday, and then I remembered, oh yeah, you gave me my daughter, okay, yeah, I love you for that, thank you very much. And I was able to then move through the other parts of my body until I got down to my toenails. And it was that was an interesting project in itself. And then I did a year where I was eating for clarity, and I learned a lot about the kinds of foods. I paid attention to how the foods made me feel physically and mentally and emotionally. And what I have learned over the years, if I drink alcohol, it's okay to have a glass of cider, but if I drink 2 or 3 days on a trot, I'm very likely to my mood will be quite low afterwards. If I eat a lot of sugar, it tastes great in the moment, but I get quite a cloudy head and feel quite foggy. And so 2 weeks ago, I decided to go back on my healthy eating, eating the food that I know that my body loves, and the food that I eat when I love my body, the stuff that fuels me, that gives me energy. And then we had visitors at the weekend, and so I went and bought some ice creams and some other things, and they didn't get eaten, so they were left in the house. And my son made some chocolate brownies, and I found myself for the last 3 days eating this stuff. And what's really lovely about what's not working is I felt flat today. What is working is looking back over the patterns and going, okay, what was the series of events? So there's a couple of things that have accumulated for me feeling flat, and whatever yours are, I really recommend that if it's not working, what you're hearing and seeing, what's the inference you're making, what's the story you're making up, and what's the impact. And then look at what happened just before, what happened just before, what happened just before. And when you start to track those things, you can start to find your patterns. So one of the patterns that's happened for me is that 2 things happened this week that changed. I always look at things that have changed. One, last week, Mark was working in the office. This week, he was working in the office again. And then he came back to work in the house yesterday. And my system has to change because we have our main meal at different times of the day, depending whether Mark's around or not. So I was just noticing that I was adapting my whole eating behaviour around Mark. The second thing is I've got a terrible, it's not terrible, it's just a pattern that I have a need to be included. So when Mark's eating chocolate or brownies or stuff, as soon as I see it, I want it. Not because my body needs it, not because it's good for me, not because of anything else, but just because I want to be included. So what didn't work this week is, in a need to be included, I ended up eating food that I know I didn't want to eat. So when I got to my end of my week and I was reflecting on my energy levels and my purpose for eating cleanly, I was like, I do feel a bit flat. The good thing is, and what works better, is that the minute I catch myself feeling flat, even talking about it now and verbalizing it to you means my energy levels are changing. But secondly, I know that I have to just eat really well today, and that will all be okay. So or I can choose to do what we normally do on a Friday night and have pizza with everybody else, and I can be okay with the fact that my energy levels are lower because of what I'm eating. And so the great thing is I have choice. That's always going to happen. So I'd love to hear from you. We've got 3 people on. Please share with me below in the comments what's worked for you this week, what's not gone so well, and what could have worked better. And then just noticing, particularly if there's any patterns there. Has this happened before? Is this a repeat thing? Because they're the things to pay attention to. And if you are in drama, if the thing that's not worked well is because of somebody else doing something, then think about the setup questions. What would you, given that they're doing this thing that you don't like, or it's not working, or it's their fault, so, heaven forbid, my son made chocolate brownies and gave us a tub of them. How dare he? I had put them in the freezer, but I managed to get them out and eat them anyway. So what you'd like to happen, I would like to have happen, is I need to be clearer with Liam. Only leave me 2 chunks. Don't leave me 10, because 2 would have been fine. but I didn't need 10 of them. So that's what I could have done. I didn't want to be excluded. I definitely wanted to have some, but it was the quantity that would have worked better for me. Also think, so how I need to be is to have much more clarity about what I want. And the thing that I'd also do is think about what resource and support you need. And the other thing that didn't work this week is that I packed my diary up really full, and there was several appointments that were over my meal times. So yesterday I was boot camp training with Belinda from 10 till 11, which is great, that's fine, it works, but I'd missed my breakfast, so by the time 11 o'clock I was starving, so then I was back-to-back appointments, so I didn't get to have something to eat till 3 o'clock, and then I had loads of appointments from 5 o'clock right through, so I ended up eating stuff out of the freezer, which was like frozen chips and processed sausages, vegan sausages, all the stuff that I know doesn't give me energy. So another thing that I know about my pattern is that the way I manage my diary, the way I plan my diary will inevitably be determine whether I've got time to prepare and plan the food and organise it. Now, interestingly enough, another thing that didn't work about the food is there was twice I went to go to make a recipe that I was planning to have, and the ingredients weren't there, and I bought a mega bag of cashew nuts for these couple of recipes, but we'd been eating them with our breakfast. So again, what could have worked better is I could have labelled that big bag and put need these for recipes and let the rest of the family know so they weren't munching on them, because that's something else that didn't work so well. And so that's another pattern that I know, is that I'm usually the one that's holding the meals in my head. I know what the food in the cupboard is for, but there are certain foods that the family munch on, and if I need them for recipes, I need to communicate better that I need those. So that's my week. I feel like there's 4 people listening. It's absolutely great to have you here. So I just want you to think about your week. What worked? And then whatever you write down, just notice whether, how do you know it worked? What did you hear and see? And so what worked for me is that most of the time, well, actually what's worked really is I haven't eaten as well as I'd like to, and I'm not beating myself up about it. I'm okay with it. I'm just noticing that rather than going, oh my God, you're useless, Cheryl, you've got no willpower, rah, 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 rah. I'm like, oh, that's interesting. What's the patterns? What is it? Okay, what could I do better? So next time I need to make sure I've already ordered the food. The food is being delivered between 9 and 11 today. I got up at 6 this morning. I've ordered my food for today. I'm going to go and prepare my meal in a moment now, so I've got everything ready for today. I've also got stuff in the freezer I can take out to have for my dinner tonight. So, I'm already learning, I'm on it. So what's really working for me is that I'm not beating myself up like I did last time. So I've repeated some patterns with the food, but the thing that has changed is that I'm not giving myself a hard time about it. The lowness that I'm feeling, the flatness I was feeling, past tense now, isn't because of me emotionally being hard on myself. It's simply because of the food that I've eaten. It's a physical thing that's impacting my well-being. And so I shall go back to high energy food today and tomorrow, and I shall look forward to my delivery arriving between 9 and 11. So I'm going to stop there. Please share with me your successes, what's working for you, how do you know what you're hearing and seeing, and what's the impact. Also talk about what's not working, what's not gone so well, and notice if this is a pattern. Has this happened before? Does this happen with other people? If it does, be curious about the pattern, and then start to look at what happens just before. What's the trigger that makes that pattern evolve? And mine's usually, nearly always, about wanting to join in, wanting to be with other people, not wanting to be left out. And so I will work on that story, and I'm much better at being excluded as long as I have absolute clarity of what I want and I'm prepared. I've given myself the time to get things ready, because if I'm going to change a behavior, I need to give it time. There's nothing else that's the big thing for me. So what is it that didn't work for you? And be curious, how do you know it didn't work? And how I know it didn't work is I felt yuck last night. I went to bed and I was like, I've been going to bed full of energy. I've been like 10, 11 o'clock. I've got loads of energy. Last night I was just like, oh, I just want to go to sleep. I feel like someone had drugged me. I'm like, I don't want to feel like that. So that's how I know, is because of how I was feeling. And things that could have worked better, I've already talked about for me personally. So what about you? What could work better? What will you hear and see when it is working better? What do you infer from that? And what resource or support might you need as well for those changes to be put in place? Have an amazing weekend. I look forward to seeing you back on Manager Critic Monday at 9 o'clock. Thank you for joining me today. Have a great day.